Ooh, let me hold on a second here. That looks kind of funny. Good evening. Now let's see. I'll make sure we're recording here. And we are. And it is a good evening. I'm so happy to see everyone, or actually, I only see me. But anyway, I'm happy that many of you have done a really good job at checking out the recording for our Zoom rooms. And I know that you have busy lives. It's not always easy to check in. At the time that I go on here, I can schedule it for many different times, I'm sure, and still miss you because of the different things that all of you are doing. So anyway, a few things. I'm not going to be in here very long. I won't keep you long. We made it halfway through the course, so I'm not going to make you this evening. Next week might be a little bit longer, but this evening anyway, for a couple of reasons, in celebration of our halfway mark, I'm not going to make you stay on the Zoom room in the recording for very long. Listen to me go on and on and on. As much as I know you love that, ha ha ha. And it's also storming like crazy here, so the internet has been a little bit spotty. Hopefully this is coming through for you, and you're getting this as clearly, you're hearing it as clearly as I'm hearing myself, if you will. I want to do a recap, in essence, is what I like to do halfway through the course, as I said. 50% finished. These courses are, as I believe I have mentioned it previously, these courses are accelerated, not abbreviated. So although it is a 6-week course, it is a college level course, and you're going to cover just as much material as you would cover in an entire semester. And obviously, I think some of you realize that because there's a lot of work. We're covering a lot of ground. But I will say this, I have been in this profession for over 2 decades, well over 2 decades now, and you're very fortunate to be studying at Central Christian College. I have taught at other universities and colleges. There's a number of reasons for that, and not to knock the other colleges, they've all been very fine, but when we're talking about online education, people ask me oftentimes, and this goes along with human development, just so you know, is it easier or is it better to teach in person or online? Or is it, the other question obviously, is it easier or is it better to take a class in person or online? The difference is, and this is I think, I won't say profound, but it's kind of, it's insightful. The internet, we've got a lot, we're very young with this mode right now. The internet and online education lends itself to providing information. There's more information obviously on the World Wide Web and the internet than you could possibly ever get to in 10 lifetimes, and they keep putting more on day by day. I think something like 100,000 YouTube videos get uploaded every week or something like that. As opposed to being in a classroom, it lends itself to acquiring knowledge. The different words I used, information and knowledge. Information is just data. It's just things. It's just charts and graphs and statistics and case studies. And, you don't necessarily know, thinking about the internet, which ones are the most important or how to apply what you've learned, okay? Where you get that in a classroom, you only, you don't have access necessarily in a traditional classroom, although we do now, but in a traditional classroom, you don't have all that information up there. Someone has actually gone ahead and narrowed it down into what you need for this particular class. What Central Christian College of Kansas has done with these apply assignments, they have brought that home for you. I didn't write these lesson plans, and Gina and I think one other student. This is I understand the first class you've taken at CCCK, but you're going to see a very familiar pattern, not exactly the same, but a very familiar pattern as you take all the classes. You have some discussions, you have some quizzes sometimes. There's no quizzes in this class, good for you guys. But then you have those very important and very well thought out apply assignments. That's, I won't say that's the only important part or even the most important part, but it is really what sets this education head and shoulders above what you may even get in a traditional classroom that many 18 and 20-year-olds are taking even right now. So this lends itself to human development, as I said, more along the lines as you get to the adult stage. And it's broad in scope, if you will, but I want you to kind of think about that as you go forward and think about cognitively the challenges that adult learners have, as well as the opportunities that adult learners have, because that really does apply right to you. So, as I said, profound might be it is a very, that's a strong terminology, but insightful to think about as you go forward in your education as it relates to yourself and human development. So I'm going to stop there with that part of it. I did want to, along those lines, one of the things that I wanted to talk about as we're halfway finished now, I wanted to commend you for the fine work that you're doing on your, what I sometimes call your human development project. There's a lot to this, and some of you, more than one of you, were asking in the beginning of the course, what do I do with this? Is this something that's ongoing? Do I put it all together? Well, yes, it's week by week. That's all you have to worry about. Week by week, you're given the developmental stage that you're going to address, and in the end, you put it all together. This is very good for those big projects that you're going to have, especially if you go on into grad school, and I hope that you certainly consider that. Because oftentimes students from elementary school through high school through college get overwhelmed with a big project. And I can tell you from the professor side, as well as student side for that matter, people tend to put off the projects until, the week before they're due. They've had, in a traditional college, 16 weeks or 14 weeks to work on it, and they scramble the last week and lose sleep, and it's not a very good product in the end. So this gives you an idea of how to pace yourself, and at the end, you're gonna have a very nice document that you can reflect on. Obviously, you've had to rely on family members and photographs in the very beginning, and scientific data from the very, very beginning, right? And then as you were born, birth to 3 years, obviously you don't have memories of that. If you do, they're very scattered. If you do, and I do have memories between 2 and 3. Are they reliable memories? I don't know. Are they memories that are there as a, and probably many of you have this too, are they memories that are there because of stories that I've heard or what I was told? No way to know for sure. But going past 3, we can start to have some memories. Many people don't, and the people that do don't have a lot of them, but some do. And of course, depending on your age. I was reading one of your papers, I think, over the weekend, and I won't mention who it was, but naming each teacher they had. And I can remember all of my elementary school teachers. Had a good experience with most of them. So that's also very good. So I just want to take just a moment and commend you for the fine work that you're doing with, again, what I call the human development project. I really, and it seems to me at least, as I read those, that you are really enjoying those. I think you are, hope you are. I can assure you that I'm enjoying reading them for a lot of reasons. One, I walk down memory lane with you, and I reflect on my own human development and those ages. I kind of feel the joy. I think that it seems, based on your writing, that you're kind of feeling and reflecting on. And in addition to, in some cases, and I've taught this course 3 or 4 times at Central Christian College with this assignment, it's not always joyful. Sometimes I'll read a certain section of a student's life where it was challenging, and yet they overcame. So those are also very rewarding for me to read, as well as for the students to put down. So anyway, that's that. So I'm going to move on from that. If we had something where I'd do a little dialogue, but that's okay. So we got into one of my favorite subjects, discipline, recently, and week 1, your code was love and logic. Was Jim Fay, Dr. Jim Fay. He's made a real, really nice little name for himself there, teaching parents how to raise children appropriately. And as I mentioned, I'm a big fan of his. If I were to do that, I think I'd be saying much of the same things that he does. When I'm working with parents, sometimes I don't even go into what I want them to do. I direct them to Jim Fay, which is good because, it's not just me saying it. And again, he's way above me and with his research, because that is what he's done. That has been his passion in life. That has been what he's worked on. I don't know of anything else that he's spent his time and resources on, which is okay because he's very good at this. And it's not rocket science. It's not easy by any stretch of the imagination. Being a parent is the toughest job that you'll ever love. There are some parents that don't engage, and yeah, that's easy to do, but the results tend not to be desirable. So, and there's no guarantee if you do everything right in terms of disciplining your child or your children, that they're going to turn out to be exactly how you want them to be, or even close to how you want them to be. But we do know that there's a better chance of that happening if you do apply the appropriate parenting and what I call human relations skills. I can think of more than one film, but I tend to think of one in particular where there are 3 children. The mom and dad have been married, as very young. They raised their family. 2 of the children are doing very well. Never been in any trouble in school, or certainly not with the law. Just really desirable people to be around. They get along socially. They have a nice support system. But that's 2 of the children. The 3rd one made his own choices. And in spite of the parents' best efforts, in spite of treating the children all the same, when the one child became a teenager, those things, the decisions were made, and that child went and did things that weren't logical, and the child knew was not the right thing to do, and but he did them anyway. Now, so I say that, especially when I'm doing like a parenting class or working with parents, because there's no guarantees. But it's one of those things where there's a better chance that things are going to work out if you apply the right techniques. And I'll go back to love and logic, because we talked about discipline and corporal punishment, and I deal with this a lot. And I think the majority of you tend to believe in corporal punishment. Many of you mentioned that you got spanked as children, and that you spank your children, and you gave me the Bible verses to support that. And believe me, it's a hot topic. I'm not in favor of corporal punishment for myself. I'm not here to tell anybody else how to raise their children in terms of whether to administer corporal punishment or not. I do, in my professional capacity, have to report parents who abuse their children, and I've made more reports than I can count over the years. Um, Spanking, I've never reported a parent for spanking a child because that's not abuse. I have reported parents who've burned their children with cigarettes. I have who suspected, because I don't investigate to be, exactly clear. I've reported parents who apparently left welt marks on their children's backs, 6, 7-year-old child, as though they'd been beaten with a whip. I've reported parents who have left marks on their children from hitting them with the buckle end of the belt. I have reported parents who have made children stand for hours and hours and hours with their nose in the corner. That's what we call psychological maltreatment. So those are the things that we're talking about when we talk about physical punishment not being a deterrent. And I'm obviously never going to go against the Bible. But let's get into what the Bible says. The Bible says, one, thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. And the analogy there is of a shepherd. And again, I'm not saying, don't misunderstand, I'm not saying to not spank your children. If you do it and you don't do it out of anger, if you do it out of love, and that's what I hear in the discussions. To be clear, I'm not suggesting anyone has beaten their kid out of anger. Don't misunderstand me. It's just me, guys. So the Bible verse talks about, thy rod and thy staff, they come. That's the analogy of a shepherd with his long staff, and he would get the hook and the staff and bring the sheep back into the line. Not saying they didn't tap them with it, but he would not have beaten them with it. He would have given a little whack, perhaps. The Bible also says, do not provoke your children to anger. And children are going to get angry at you sometimes. I think somebody even pointed that out. And I'm a big, listen, let them say they're angry at you. Let them say that you don't love them. Don't fall for that bait. Don't fall into that trap. They'll get over it. You must discipline your children. I am a huge fan of discipline your children. The difference is discipline is teaching, not punishment. Punishment is punishment. And I'm not saying that to punish in either. I'm not saying that there's not a time that's not a tool of discipline, because sometimes it is, okay? But you certainly, if spanking a child is warranted for, up to a certain age, then you spank them. But you do it out of love, and you don't cause physical harm. Imagine what the child feels like getting spanked on the bottom, right, by the parent. It's not any fun. It really hurts at the time, and but they get over that. If you administer discipline that, again, goes beyond the boundaries, leaves marks, leaves cuts, leaves bruises, psychological maltreatment, denying them food for days, humiliating them, then kids just naturally learn that the one with the power has the control. The one with the power can, if a person's not getting what he wants, if he has more power, he can administer that power over the weaker one. So it's a fine line. It's hard to understand, much less put into words. And I wish we had a little dialogue here. I could bounce some ideas off and see, is that making sense to you? I'm not saying that to spank. In fact, I don't say that at all. I say there are times when spankings are appropriate, but it's not the only form of discipline. What has worked best? And we have to use our minds here as well. What has worked best is a natural consequence. In my experience, from my raising my children, who are now, my son will be 25 soon, and my daughter is 23 right now. And I thank God for them. They turned out great, all by the grace of God. None of my doing, all by the grace of God. The natural consequence would be Um, if they're supposed to be in from riding their bike at 7 o'clock and they don't come in until 7:15, they lose 15 minutes of some other free time. So it's equal, it's natural. It sends the message to their mind that cost me, that 15 minutes I wasn't paying attention to the time cost me 15 minutes. I didn't like that. So I'm going to come back in 15 minutes, or I'm going to, make sure that I'm there on time from this point forward. Child breaks a window, playing ball in the front yard, child pays for the window. Child fixes the window. Child spills something, child cleans it up. I've seen it both ways. I've seen the parents who rush to, oh, you poor thing, and they start cleaning up for the child. People spill stuff. You clean it up. Let's not create anxiety in our lives. I could talk about parenting for a long time. But I do think that your discussion questions were good. I think you're all fine parents. And if there's love there also, even if you go too far, and even if you do spank when you're angry, if there's consistent love anyway, kids can bounce back from that. And that's probably the one thing, the one key that I want to say here. I've seen parents who are disengaged with their children who beat them when the parents get in trouble for some reason, or the parents are angry for some reason, they take it on the child. That's the kind of things that really, I think you'll agree with me, are really not okay. I've seen parents who are good parents, who love their kids, who attend to their kids, who have lost their temper and spanked them too hard. I'm not talking about beating them. I'm not talking about that, because you know that. But sometimes you go to spank them and you spank them just too hard. You know what? Don't beat yourself up. The child will be resilient. Prefer that. And the Bible talks about this. And I'm not saying that's a good thing, and that's to go to that default. But the child can bounce back from that, especially if there's love in the home. They can be more resilient than you think they will. And that is preferred to not paying attention to them at all. The Bible speaks to that. There's something better than either of those. But and the key is this: love them. Love them. And the best way to love them is to teach them about God's love. So I'm going to make that our secret quote, if you will, our secret words. The best way to love your children is to teach them about God's love. That's just the quote. That's all you have to have. And the reason is because if we try and be perfect for them, we're going to fail, and they'll see that, and they'll see our faults, and they'll lose confidence in us. But if we admit that we're only human like them, and while we are their parents and we are in charge of them, and we must raise them and rear them, and they must answer to us, we will make mistakes, but God will never make a mistake. God will always love them. God will never forsake them. Because while we may not, there's times when they might feel like we did, but God never will. So the key is, the best way to teach children, to love children, is to teach them about God's love. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and shut down for now. Hope you get a chance to watch the recording. I'm almost finished with grading. I got a few things, I think, of the discussion questions and a few applies that weren't submitted. So get those in and keep up with everything. And it's going to go really fast now. For those of you who've been in classes, you may realize this. To me, it seems that way. If you got an assignment out there that you haven't turned in, get with me, get it turned in. I will grade it at this point. I think I had a deadline for one of the students. After a certain point, I can't, because I don't have unlimited time to go back and grade things. I can't grade an entire 6 weeks assignments, over the weekend. That's, I just can't do that. So get anything in. You may not get full credit, but some points are better than none. It's better to pass the class with a C than have to take it again. So, and many of you got A's and A minuses, so that doesn't apply to you. But anyone who has a question, don't hesitate to reach out to me. So that's it. I'm going to go ahead and shut down, and I will see you soon.